Late on September 18, 2023, somewhere along the unlit desert ribbon of Interstate 40 between Flagstaff and Winslow, Arizona, my dashboard chimed low fuel warning for the third time, needle buried under the empty hash. Even though, leaving work, I swore I had half a tank twin red reflectors of the last semi faded ahead, and when the engine coughed final vapors, I coasted onto the gravel shoulder. I killed ignition, thinking to call Roadside. No signal. Just a looping notification that my phone's internal clock couldn't verify the network and had reset itself to 12:00 a.m., January 1st, 1970. Moonless sky revealed stars fierce enough to drill holes in the dark, but their light died inches above asphalt as though absorbed. I grabbed a 5-gallon can from the trunk, planning to flag the next driver for a lift. Yet, after 30 minutes, no vehicle passed, and in that hush, my cooling engine ticked rhythmically until a second sound joined. Tiny crunches of gravel pacing the passenger side window, too deliberate for wind. I snapped the maglite on, beam catching only dust shimmering like fine ash. To break the silence, I clicked hazard lights. They flashed once, then froze, bulbs glowing steady amber. The reflection in the driver window showed me drawn and tired, and behind that, in the back seat, a silhouette hunched that hadn't been there. I spun, door still locked, cabin empty. When I checked the glass again, the dark cutout was gone, but the interior dome now glowed faint green. Determined to reach help, I started walking east with gas can swinging, counting steps to stay calm. By what I guessed was 20 minutes, the same mile marker reappeared. 219, bullet pocked, and footprints behind had vanished. Ahead, a single canopy light blinked on, an ancient Sinclair pump island, standing alone, no store, no vehicles. Relief flooded me as I reached the pump, analog dials and a lever handle. Though price read 0.000 per gallon, faceplate scratched with something like talon marks. The nozzle hung, hose leading into ground, but where the tank cap should have been yawned a dark cavity bigger than any storage well. A payphone booth leaned beside the pump, handset dangling, cord frayed, yet receiver emitted dial tone remarkably clear. I dialed 911. Instead of ring, my voice, anxious recorded seconds earlier, echoed back, "Please send help to mile marker 219. Looping unease overshadowed relief. I backed away, but a gust slammed the booth door, shattering side glass. Shards landed, forming the number 219 lights behind me. The shape of my Mazda, hazard ambers still frozen, yet the green dome now pulsed brighter, every beat synchronized with my heart. Something sat in the driver's seat. Hands, impossibly long, rested atop the steering wheel, drumming in time with the light. Figure's head turned mechanically. I swallowed terror and decided I'd rather risk that than staying amid phantom fuel. Approaching, I noted fresh footprints, elongated like deer but bipedal, leading from my tire tracks to the driver door. They ended where the door now stood ajar. The interior smelled of hot vinyl and copper pennies. As I opened it wider, the cabin lights died, plunging to pitch. Inside, I felt a long seat, finding nothing. Yet the engine suddenly cranked, though tank had been bone dry. On the dash, fuel gauge read exactly half, and trip computer displayed range 219 mi. My phone chimed deep in pocket, screen alive, despite no service. New text from unknown number, message, "Keep driving." I slipped behind wheel, heart hammering, slammed lock. Gear in drive, tires bit gravel. As I merged onto pavement, odometer zeroed itself, then began counting backwards. 218.9, 218.8. Each tenth lost. The clock sprinted forward a minute, though dashboard still stuck on 12:01. The radio snapped on, playing my earlier panicked 911 plea reversed. Windshield ahead held no stars now, only ink, but headlights cut a tunnel through which distant taillights appeared. Red dots multiplying until they formed a caravan, all traveling identical speed, none I could overtake. Their plates glowed faint green. Every tag read, gasless, identical. I eased nearer and glimpsed drivers, each vehicle's cabin empty save for dark silhouettes like mine earlier. Hands drumming wheel. My range ticked down. 50 miles. 10. Each decrement tightened chest. At remaining 0.1, the taillights blinked out. Road ended in black chasm. And I braked, skidding sideways onto gravel shoulder mirroring the original stop. Hazard bulbs still frozen, faint dawn paling east horizon. Fuel gauge at half again. Odometer returned to original 157,431. I drove the remaining real miles to Winslow on fumes, gauge plummeting normally. At first open gas station, I filled the tank. Pump clicked off at exactly 5 gallons, though I squeezed for more. The receipt timestamp read 12 a.m., transaction ID 219. Weeks later, car still resets trip meter to negative whenever I pass remote stretches. And if I try to ignore the warning, my phone pings a familiar text. Keep driving. On February 6, 2024, while hauling my sister's borrowed Subaru across Wyoming's Powder River Basin toward Casper for a dawn job interview, the dashboard range dropped from 50 to 23 miles in one glance, even though I'd filled the tank outside Gillette, and the worsening blizzard erased road signs, forcing me to crawl behind my own high-beam tunnel, until one last green placard flashed by. Exit 147, Powder Creek Road, gas 1 mile. So I eased onto the ramp, tires plowing ruts through knee-deep powder, and found a single pump service shack marooned in the whiteout, its flickering overhead lamp painting spirals of snowflakes like moths. The pump's plastic pay-first inside flap clacked in the wind, but the office window glowed inviting amber. So I killed the engine, fuel light screaming, and crunched to the door where an antique bell jingled, and warm diesel heat rushed my face along with canned country music cut by static. The attendant stood behind a slanted counter, thin, middle-aged, parka zipped despite the warmth, watching a snowy CRT security monitor that showed the lot outside from impossible angles, one of which captured me still seated in the idling Subaru, though I was clearly inside now. He slid a handwritten sign forward that read, "Cash only. Gas rations. 1 gallon. Price your word." I joked I'd pay any price, but had no cash, offering card. He shook his head, tapping the sign's last 2 words. Thinking this some tourist trap gimmick, I said aloud, "I promise to bring real money on my way back." He smiled, not at me, but at the monitor, where my on-screen double exited the car, footprints forming before each step touched snow. The attendant produced a vintage glass milk bottle, handed it to me, and motioned outside. I unscrewed the pump nozzle. Instead of gasoline, thin black syrup dribbled. Barely a cup, yet the bottle's interior steamed, filling instantly to the 1 gallon mark and warming my gloves. Back at the Subaru, the tank swallowed the viscous fuel with a hiss like boiling water. The gauge spiked to exactly 1 bar, range reading 15 miles. As I returned the bottle, the attendant slid a second card across, pre-printed with reservoir and 3 blank lines. In the first blank my handwriting already appeared. Money, ink, fresh. I signed, "Anything to leave," and he stamped the date, Wo 207-2004, though midnight was hours away. Outside, snow slackened, but on merging back to I-90, the odometer climbed instead of turning forward. 147. 146, like distance reversing, yet the speedometer read 40. Radio blurted a highway advisory from 1993 about stranded motorists near Powder Creek Road. My phone lost GPS. When the range neared 0, the same exit ramp re-emerged, blizzard raging again. Desperation trumped logic. I re-entered, feeder road unchanged except fresh tire divots identical to mine. Attendant awaited, holding the milk bottle clean. This time, the sign demanded, "Price your memory." I stammered a childhood anecdote about sledding with my late father. As I spoke, the CRT showed my younger self on a red sled, replaying the memory until the scene drained of color, father's face blurring to static. Third visit, shack warmer, attendant's parka gone, revealing dress shirt soaked with inky stains. Sign now read, "Price your name." Terror rooted me, but exhaustion and survival instincts made me whisper my full name. Letters peeled from my driver's license, drifting upward like ashes absorbed by fluorescence, leaving the plastic blank. While fuel poured, the attendant spoke first words, my voice exactly, thanking me for the trade. On the monitor, my double grinned from Subaru driver's seat, teeth blackened. I refused the fourth loop, aiming to plow past exit 147, but interstate mile markers jumped from 142 back to 147 without exits between radio looping the same 1993 alert. Tank bone dry, engine sputtered. I coasted to shoulder, frost-crawling windshield. Headlights died. Hazard switch clicked uselessly. Through swirling snow, a procession of stalled vehicles appeared. Trucks, sedans, a decades-old station wagon, each with hoods up. Drivers slumped inside, faces gray wax. All pumps from different eras sat gutted on flatbeds among them. No hoses, just cracked milk bottles stacked like trophies. Footsteps crunched. The attendant approached, now wearing my coat, holding final card, price your place. In mirror glass of a frozen pickup, I watched my reflection strobe between my face and his. He offered the bottle one last time, empty, and pointed to the Subaru where my double beckoned from the driver's seat, index finger tapping wrist as if late. Understanding dawned. Trade location, let the Echo replace me on the road while I man the shack, serving the next stranded traveler. I hurled the bottle at him. It shattered, shards sinking noiseless into drifts. I sprinted, ignoring his calm pursuit, yet every step dragged as if time syrup blizzard winds formed the words reservoir in airborne snow, blowing sideways toward the shack. Limping past car husks, I found an oil company plow, keys dangling, driver inside mummified, but battery sparked to life. I sped west, engine growling, windshield wipers smearing frost. Mile markers leapt erratically, but after what felt like hours, dawn split clouds, revealing Casper's outskirts and traffic hum. At a gas station brimming with life, I stumbled inside. Attendant asked name. Mouth opened. Nothing. Credit card chip failed, all embossed letters erased. Local news on TV mentioned an obscure landmark fire overnight. An abandoned pump shack along Powder Creek Road burned to foundation. Firefighters found dozens of glass bottles fused together, contents unknown. In surveillance reflection above the cash register, I saw the attendant's face flicker to mine for a split second before settling, as if calibrating. I live now by public transit. Documenting fossil stations across Wyoming, each new photo develops faint handwriting in corners. Word, date, sign, waiting. And on every winter night, near 1:22 a.m., I smell diesel and warm pennies, reminded that I still owe my place. And the road always collects with interest whenever the world runs just a little low on fuel. On June 15, 2024, just after 9:18 p.m., I was threading my aging Ford Ranger through the fog-choked hairpins of Oregon's Coast Range on Highway 34, hurrying back to Corvallis from a surf day at Waldport, when the low-fuel light winked on, even though I'd filled up that morning. The nearest station was 21 winding miles east in Alsea, but the trip computer insisted I still had 40 miles in reserve, so I kept a steady downhill coast, headlights carving mist as thick as milk. 3 bends later, the gauge needle slid from quarter tank to stone, empty in one glacial sweep, engine coughing once, twice, and died just as the asphalt leveled at a narrow turnout hemmed by moss-slick guardrail and Douglas fir spires. Phone service flickered 1 bar, then none. I stepped out into dew-cold silence broken only by dripping branches and distant river hiss. My emergency can in the bed was dry. I'd forgotten to refill after loaning its contents to a stranded tourist last month. I killed the hazard lights to save battery and tried 911 anyway. The call screen froze, timer stuck on 010, before collapsing with no network. I planned to hike west toward a rest area I'd passed, but fog erased the road's edges and unseen critters rustled just beyond flashlight reach. That was when I heard an engine, deep diesel rumble climbing the grade behind me. Twin headlights widened through fog until a massive antique tanker truck emerged. Chrome grille war-scarred. No company decal, only a hand-painted sign above the windshield that read, "Full Service," in fading crimson. It stopped beside the Ranger. Air brakes sighed, cab door creaked, and a driver in navy coveralls descended. Tall, broad-shouldered, face shadowed by a grimy baseball cap. Without greeting, he studied my Ranger's fuel door, then my plate, as though taking inventory. I spoke first, voice shaky. Ran out of gas. Didn't know anyone delivered out here. The driver's response was odd. His lips moved, but the words emerged through a small speaker clipped to his collar, tinny like a CB radio. Lucky break, carry premium, cash or exchange. He produced a brass pump nozzle attached to a thin hose snaking back into the tanker. Something bothered me. The truck's tank was matte black, seams welded shut with no visible hatch or meters. "How much for 5 gallons?" I asked. He lifted a handheld calculator older than me, tapped keys that displayed 0.00, then flipped it. Screen now read, "Give what you owe." Before I could argue, he'd already unscrewed my filler cap and plunged the nozzle. A vibration ran up the hose, more felt than heard, like a distant subway underfoot. After maybe 15 seconds, he yanked it free with a practiced snap. No fuel sloshed, hose end bone dry, yet I smelled faint gasoline mixed with hot iron. The Ranger roared to life on first twist of ignition. Fuel gauge lifted, past full needle burying itself beyond the F mark, until digital display blinked range 999 mi. Relief warred with unease. I fetched my wallet, but the driver raised a gloved hand, speaker crackling. "Balance later. Enjoy the miles." He clambered into the tanker, gears clanked, and the rig vanished downslope, taillights swallowed by fog. I pulled away, uneasy. Every few miles, the odometer stuttered, numbers rearranging nonsense digits before advancing. Also, the cabin clock ticked faster, minutes jumping in threes. 10 miles on, a new dash icon glowed red, an hourglass I'd never seen. I muted the radio only to hear faint Morse-like popping from the speakers, spelling, if my Boy Scout memory served, pay. At Alcie's single pump station, I topped off to be safe. The pump shut off at exactly 0.01 gallons, receipt reading, paid in full, 0.0. When I mentioned the tanker to the clerk, her face drained. She muttered locals had swapped tales for decades about a black rig that tops you off before big accidents. Last sighted the night a tourist bus careened into the Marys River Gorge. She suggested I drive careful. Back on 34, the fog dissolved into clear night, but anytime my speed rose above 40, the hourglass icon blinked faster and the engine cut power until I coasted back down. At 11:06 p.m., my phone regained signal long enough for a single notification. Mileage debt reminder, full service fleet, with a countdown of 3. It evaporated before screenshots. Exactly 3 minutes later, headlights flooded my mirrors. The same tanker barreling up, horn low and mournful. I swerved toward a picnic turnout. The rig followed, grill inches from my tailgate. I bailed, rolling into ferns as the Ranger lunged down a ravine, engine screaming wide open despite no driver. The tanker idled at the precipice, its driver's side window level with me. Interior cab light flicked on, revealing the seat empty. The speaker on the dash crackled the word due. Then the rig reversed in silence and thundered away uphill, tires leaving no tracks. Shaking, I scrambled to the Ranger, miraculously upright among alder saplings, engine dead, gauge back to empty, odometer reading, odor 0.2 like factory reset. I spotted my surfboard still strapped in the bed, leash fluttering, except the waxed deck now bore a smear-shaped, uncannily like an hourglass. A tow truck hauled me to Corvallis at sunrise. Mechanics said the fuel system was bone dry, tank interior coated with powder fine as fireplace ash. Insurance totaled the truck. The claim adjuster made me sign mileage disclosure. I wrote 0, the truth. Since that night, once a month, an email slips past spam. Refuel appointment scheduled, full service. It includes my current location even when GPS is off and counts down from 3 hours to 0, then disappears. I drive rentals now, never at night, never on half a tank, but sometimes, cresting coastal hills, I'll glimpse a pair of high headlights in the mirror, pacing my speed. And the dash clock skips forward a few minutes while the fuel needle trembles, reminding me that somewhere on those empty roads, a tanker with no logo still honors its bargain, delivering premium miles for a price collected later when the gauge reads anything but empty. Empty tanks, phantom pumps, and a debt that follows you long after the gauge reads full, fuel stops may never feel the same. If these true out-of-gas nightmares revved your fear, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you're tanked up for the next journey into the unknown.